Do we have too many of the same old opening segments each week in SmackDown and Raw? Is Karrion Kross actually building towards doing something on TV? Can anybody be bothered with Goldberg being the world title picture? Money in the Bank into King Queen of the Ring has led to too many multi-man matches and it's killing each show. All this and more in the Golden Shovel podcast, your weekly recap of all things WWE storytelling. Let's get it. Welcome back to the best wrestling podcast filmed in 3 random bedrooms in the west of Scotland. I am once again, as always, joined by our resident SmackDown expert, Daz, and our developmental talent who's been sent to TNA, Ross.
How are we doing?
This has been a bit of midweek, hasn't it, for the product. We've got Night of Champions coming up, followed by Saturday night's mid-event, as Daz likes to call it, and to be honest with you, they're 2 shows we normally don't care about. It does appear that they're stacking the deck a little bit for Night of Champions, so obviously that Saudi checks hit the bank nice and early. But apart from that, there's not a lot to get really involved in. I got a taste of it this week. We're going to start with SmackDown. Daz, I alluded to it in the pre-intro. Another opening segment is just a heel ranting for 15 minutes. Talk us through it.
There's not really much to talk through, if I'm honest. Again, I did say that last week. I think John's getting a bit better in this heel run. Things are starting to come together a little bit for him. The introduction of CM Punk into that definitely helps. It definitely elevates it massively. You said it yourself last week. This is the feud we all want. This is what we all want to see. It's kind of similar to the Friday before Money in the Bank, where Seth Rollins had about 4 segments. John had another segment. Later in the show, we R-Truth. Obviously, we're building towards John and R-Truth this Friday coming. I'm intrigued how that's going to play out. I don't really understand why it's happening so quickly, but I'm interested to see how that goes. Yeah, it is. It's just that it's a heel on the mic for 10-15 minutes to open the show. I don't really know when this is going to end. For a long time, it was mostly Raw. Now it's Raw and SmackDown, and I don't really know where the end is for it, if I'm really honest.
Ross, do you find yourself skipping through the first 10-15 minutes? Because I know today, as I watched Raw, I did skip through that. I think I put it into X speed on Netflix, but it's not going anywhere, especially because, as Dad says, every week the heels coming out doing their 50-minute promo, but we know we're getting them again at some point in the show later on. So we're not even getting anywhere with this opening promo, but it's just filler. We're starting with filler.
It's not a good way to start shows when you're trying to get people invested in it. Probably points to why I thought the crowds for SmackDown and Raw were a little bit iffy this week, probably in part due to the quality of the shows and the fact that, as you say, they're getting the same things each time. NXT got it right this week. Like, they know how to start a show. You just immediately, you got a run in a parking lot and then boom, into a title match. Fantastic. Just start with a match. Something like, I don't mind a promo to start if you do it occasionally and you chop and change around, but got to change it up.
I think the one thing we don't see when we're watching TV that the live audience get, and it's probably a different perception, is that they do actually start the show with dark matches prior to the actual show going live on air. So the crowd are probably warmed up. I'm just getting a bit tired of. I mean, the old mantra used to be the heel would come out, cut a promo, and it would set up your main event for that show. And you would only maybe get like a small backstage segment later in the show before the main event. Now we're getting John at the beginning, a backstage segment for John because he's been attacked, and he turns the cap backwards, which is one of the coolest and cringiest things I've ever seen in the one segment. And then we get another John Cena in the ring at the end where he gets attacked again. So I am not enamoured by the setup, to be honest, but I think there's probably one match worth talking about that I'd like to talk about, to be honest. And I'll save it for last because I'm just going to get all the shit out of the way.
There's this we've discussed, and we'll say it. We'll manifest in existence. This could be a shorter pod this week because we're going to skip as much of the crap and filler as we can. But you've got a show with so many fatal 4-ways and multi-man matches. You could have just opened one of them. Like these don't need builds because it's part of King and Queen of the Ring. They don't need the setup promo. The setup is you're trying to qualify for a chance to win the King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring, and get a title shot. And I just think, as you said, there does about they used to be sets up the main event. It's just that microcosm of the wider issues. The only issues that we've moaned about really since we started this podcast has been the dragging out of stories, because you know it's a SummerSlam or a Mania feud, and also the number of PLEs, and it has meant that every couple of weeks we just feel these shows just have too much filler. It's been the weakest SmackDown for a few weeks for us. I mean, we've SmackDown's killed Raw as far as we're concerned, in terms of having fun matches. In the last 10 weeks since we've been doing this, but this week's just like, it felt as though everything that we've nitpicked, because that's what it has been. It's been nitpicking. Everything we've nitpicked for the last 10 weeks, but all in the same week, which made it feel just eh. And as we're trying to grow both our YouTube channels, it's funny that we're sitting there watching The Hook, your opening segment, you're hooking on, I want to turn this off after 15 minutes. Yeah. So we've mentioned the Fatal 4-Ways there. Daz, obviously, where are you taking us next for SmackDown? There's a plethora of multi-matches to take us through.
We'll wade through the ship to get to the one part that was okay. So I do agree, if we'd started with a Fatal 4-Way, it might have been more interesting. However, if we'd started with a women's Fatal 4-Way, I reckon I would have turned it off. There's a couple of spots in the match that were good. I mean, the ending's good, and I like what we're building towards with Alexa and Charlotte. But to be honest, it was a really, really poor match. I'm a fan of Piper Niven, right? Not a big fan of Michin. They didn't add anything to the match. They didn't add anything to the story. The two were flung in for whatever reason, and it was really to tell the story, really. I don't really know what else to say.
Should they just have went for King in the ring for an extra round of matches and just had folk pulling double duty for 2 weeks? You know, rather than having a Fatal 4, we just make it 2. Because we've now had 6 straight weeks of Fatal 4-Ways and triple threats that are qualifying with, like, no offence to Piper and Michin, but neither of them were getting anywhere near winning that match. It was always going to be Jade or Nia, and it was most likely going to be Jade. Same with the other match, it was always going to be Alexa or Charlotte. Even though I know on Raw there's maybe a difference, more of a surprise in the Raw matches. And I'm looking up my notes here, like Alba Fire and Candice LeRae. You know, they're good workers and we like them, but they're not getting there. So just why waste everybody's fucking time?
I don't really understand the 4 women he put in the ring didn't make sense. The 4 on Friday didn't make sense to be in the ring as a group. None of them really have a story that works off each other, with the exception of Nia and Jade a little bit. But even at that, they've not built enough into that. So yeah, disappointing. We'll talk about the Fatal 4-Way that was actually okay. We'll talk about the men's Fatal 4-Way. Was it okay? QB3. You know my thoughts on the guy. I'm just totally unenamored by him. I thought, again, it was lackluster booking. I'm normally so hot in SmackDown, and I've got loads and loads to talk about. I just feel really disheartened by this week, and I think
as well,
my notes are extremely short this week.
The 2 shows, I'm the same. My notes are literally, this match happened, and that was it. As you've seen, she's up at my notes in Discord for this. And Ross, it wasn't even 2 separate shows this week, because there was 2. They talk about the brand split, I know, but the same people showing up both shows. Like Cena's done both shows a few weeks, and I know we've had a lot of PLEs, but Cody standing tall essentially at the end of both shows, isn't he? And I liked his run. I just feel we're now at a stage where, if we're going to criticise the opening segments for being the same old, we have to at least say, look, we're just seeing the same thing every week for Cody, and at some point something will have to change, surely.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I don't really understand why they just made Raw just SmackDown 2.5 or whatever the hell. Like, it just continued on, and yeah, I think they really need to take a look at it. They really need to take a look at themselves and go, what on earth are we doing here? Like, if we're going to have these situations where we constantly get this repetition over and over again and you're dragging out stories, swap superstars in and out. I'd said it last week, and I've said it before, and I'll probably will say it again. swap them out and just bench people for a couple of months, and then just bring them in and run a normal program. And this just isn't a problem. It just isn't a problem. You get less injured people as well. It's just, it's really, really poor.
Maybe we're just at a stage where, because we've seen all these triple threats and now we've seen all these fatal four ways, no matter what, you can't have a short fatal four way because you have to allow people time to get their work in. And it's maybe just being too cramped of a show.
Like if you include the commercial breaks that those matches have, they must have been like 35, 40 minutes long in real time.
Including 4 sets of entrances and whatever else comes with it.
And some Slim Jim tables. Like, it's
mad. Yeah, don't forget the Slim Jim tables.
History making paper living.
Yeah, what I do want to talk about, because the show itself was poor, it was disappointing, it was lackluster booking. There was a shining light in the show, and that was Orton. He looked brilliant. Melo always looks good. Black again looked good, and LA Knight. We know where the story's headed for LA Knight. So I thought it was the not saving grace, because it didn't rescue the show. The show was dog shit, unfortunately. But it was a highlight of what was a really poor show. And I'm not looking forward to King of the Ring and how the booking looks. Obviously, we'll get to Raw and who progresses, etc. But am I really that excited by any other name than Orton that's still in King of the Ring?
I think the single worst thing you can do in a King of the Ring tournament is have 2 semi-finalists that have just dropped the world titles. There is no need for them to be there. It was never the point of King of the Ring back in the day. It was kind of supposed to elevate someone, and I think it's one of these we've discussed Money in the Bank in the pod, but also in real life for the last however many years, and we've kind of said we feel as though, a bit like Ross, it needs bench for a few years. It just needs to go away for a while, because Triple H has, rightly or wrongly, and arguably rightly, because Vince McMahon made an arse at a good 3 years in a row, has just played safe with it. He's played safe, but you've now got the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, King of the Ring. You have enough tools to elevate people. Remember the last time? How often do you get a good old-fashioned number one contenders match for a world title? Because you just have somebody coming and saying, "I want a title shot." So we've lost that, because we now have all these different methods of getting people to the main event picture. Never mind winning an Intercontinental title and holding it for 660 odd days, which was which is the old way of doing it, holding it for. So I just feel like they actually need a bit more chaos, to borrow a phrase from Ross. Like, you don't need to have this Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, King of the Ring. Like, just let people fight for a few months, and then, by the way, this person, AJ Styles, has actually been looking really good in the ring. We should really push, in the crowd are behind them, let's push another world title shot. Or conversely, actually, Nia Jax just came back, the crowd are hating her, but the reaction's amazing. The Annihilator looks good. She needs to go back to, like, it's allowed to just be, let's just see how it plays out, rather than this thing. Because I just feel like with the King of the Ring, they've backed themselves into a corner with the way it's been done, because it's so close to Money in the Bank. Because it's, save it for Raw, because we'll save it for Raw, because it is the end of Raw, and we're going to talk about up at the end of Raw for whatever reason. Great, it was the finish to that match was brilliant. It was enjoyable, but the whole match up to that point was a bit like, this is the big O. We discussed it pre-pod, but we'll get to it. It's just the and I'm looking at my SmackDown notes, and I'm looking at my hand notes, and I'm like, I don't even know what I talk about in SmackDown. I just didn't enjoy the show. I didn't enjoy Raw either. I don't know if it's just because I just couldn't be arsed this morning watching Raw, but I didn't enjoy either show. And it's the first time I've said that, and the whole time we've done this pod, is I just did not enjoy watching wrestling this week.
I totally agree.
I can't even put my finger on it. I just feel like it was so many forced matches. There is maybe one thing worth talking about for SmackDown. It's no in the notes, but it's popped in my head there. I'll come to you on that one. Was Chelsea Green's podcast interview last week. We discussed some of it.
Yeah.
And talking about somebody who seems to get the business, because she did come in and say the feud with Zelina Vega needs to go away, and needs to go away pretty quickly. So fair play to her for at least not necessarily getting that our backup and getting reacted to people that are fed up with it, but just saying, you know what, at the end of the day, if the fans aren't buying into it, we have to move on.
Yeah,
which at least is a good bit of self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness and also bold to say it. And then obviously you have this week where she just inexplicably wasn't there and was there via FaceTime. I thought that was kind of interesting then off the back of that. Yeah, she is right though. And I think we all agreed that, I think Daz in particular, you were like, she's absolutely spot on. I'm just a little bit surprised that she was saying it.
I feel like the infection that was the women's US title, because that wasn't on the show, it just infected the rest of the show this week. And I'm now beginning to think that I need this really, really poor title and poor title run, whatever it is. I think it's needed on the show because it helps elevate the rest of the show. And that's really what I feel like. The sooner Julia takes the title, the better.
I think we're all in agreement there.
Aye. You want to wrap us up with the final thoughts then? SmackDown, a couple of things that we've not touched on yet, Daz?
Things we've not touched on, things worth talking about. No, not really.
No.
What I probably just want to focus on is that we spoke about how stacked King of the Ring is. I prefer the Queen of the Ring side of the bracket, which we'll come on to towards the end of Raw. But it's all geared at the fact that the finals take place in Saudi. It's all geared at that, and they just want to have the big names booked on the Saudi show, especially for the men's side. So I'm not really interested in who wins King of the Ring, if I'm honest. What I want to focus on coming out of SmackDown is Cena and Truth / Cena Punk. I said it last week. It's been up on TikTok as well. You asked me the question, do I think we're going to get this at SummerSlam? At Night of Champions. And I didn't think we were. We're running out of time to sack this off and build a new story to take into Saudi Arabia. We are really running out of time for this.
Yeah, it's a bit interesting.
My prediction was it was going to be him and Ron, but we're getting it on Friday. So who knows? Who honestly knows? And I'm happy to go to. I mean, if we're doing developmental this week, Ross, feel free. In my opinion, crack on.
I mean, maybe it's just one of these things where they'll come up. I mean, is there any chance that it's a cash in for Saudi? And Rollins says he wants that. He's, because the story could be that the Saudis have paid $5 million to see Rollins take on Cena or something like that. That could be a story, and you would at least buy into that. The heel stable with the money, but I don't.
I'm not looking ahead. Is it in Saudi? SmackDown.
I think it's Raw that's in Saudi. No.
So SmackDown's a taping.
It must be SmackDown because it's Friday, Saturday, isn't it?
I've not looked ahead, so I don't know if it's a taped show or if it's. They normally tape it. I've not heard this time around.
I'm just going to double check it now.
If it's a taping, there's no way it's a cash in because
SmackDown June 27th, Saudi Arabia. So June 27th is SmackDown, and the 28th will be Night of Champions.
Oh well, at least there'll be a mid SmackDown I can watch at a reasonable hour this week.
So we really have run out of time then, haven't we?
Well, because you've got one last show.
Yeah, they've ran out of time, so it is actually happening. Wow.
I just don't see.
There's got a curve somewhere. I still don't think it's going to happen, but we'll just. Maybe it'll happen in NXT this week, Russ. Maybe the developmental brand will.
You can drop down.
Tell the story. I don't know.
We're just going to move on for SmackDown then, because I think we've covered it. I'm really looking at my notes trying to drag this out, and I cannot see enough to talk about.
Put it in the bin.
Also final thing on SmackDown is just send Nakamura back to Japan. That makes misery.
That's a bit VAR on that one.
Send them back to New Japan. It's no
better. That's better. Thanks. Aye. Perfect.
Well, Raw. Just copy and paste. Because I did not enjoy Raw.
Somewhat.
I just didn't. I just really struggled with it. I mean, the opening segment, at least it was a change in personnel, but it was such a very strange segment where was there a bit where Liv genuinely believed that Io Sky was going to hand over the title, but also, and I saw this today, Io Sky hasn't wrestled in something like 6 weeks, and it's been exactly 1 month since Tiffy last wrestled. that's not acceptable, is it? Opening that to you guys for your world champions.
Do you not have fighting champions in the WWE right now? We don't have them.
That can't be right about Tiffy.
I'm sure it is.
Oh, that can't be right. I feel like I've seen her wrestle.
Even if it's not necessarily right about Tiffy,
When though? I mean,
like it's a thing that
Tiffany Stratton's last match was a victory against Nia Jax, the May 16th episode. Today's June 17th.
Wow. I mean that's not on, man. Like they need to they need to stop having. I get
we've been praising the women's division, Ross.
Well, yeah,
exactly. We've been praising them.
It just
is it though? Is it that they've been put on the back burner to help push out Roxanne, Julia, Stephanie? Is that why? Because there's limited TV time as it is.
I would believe that,
especially on Raw. I think
I would believe it if the men's didn't also not have fighting champions a lot. Whereas it makes me think it's a cultural thing around the E. They just don't want to have them fight. They just
I know, but you're saying that Jey Uso was wrestling every week, and Gunther maybe wrestles, but Gunther might wrestle slightly less, but his character fits that. Like Io Sky is a wrestler. Tiffy is best in the ring. Now, I'm saying that about you because, as we always say, I think Io Sky is phenomenal. But yes, MD doesn't have English as a first language will have a level of struggling when it comes to promo work. So you have to have somebody like that in the ring. And we mentioned it last week. It wasn't until I seen that start today that I realised that, I don't understand it. It's both shows. And again, the biggest issue with that is you've got a Money in the Bank winner sitting there that effectively can't even tease a cash in. Although they did, but they can't really tease because the champion is never in action. Just how's that going to work?
It's a weird one, especially Tiffany. Tiffany's a very bizarre one because it's not like she's short of people to wrestle on SmackDown.
Eos makes sense
on Raw, but
Eos makes sense if you're deliberately trying to move away from her and Rio, at least for a little bit. I can understand because you need to build somebody else up. But SmackDown's get Jade Cargill, Nia Jax, Naomi, the briefcase. It's now got Julia and whoever else has got it's stacked, and the people have been built up over time. Raw, I can understand. I think
they probably have taken a bit of criticism over the fact that, especially on Raw, it's been the same 2 or 3 women consistently. They've shuffled Bianca over to SmackDown to run this angle with Jade and Naomi. I think they are reshuffling the pack, and I think it's probably just what we've got right now is we're prolonging these stories to get to SummerSlam. They probably just don't want to do it ahead of Evolution. We're probably going to see the cards get dealt pretty soon for both champions, where the programs start over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I actually thought Io was carrying an injury. I had not realised it had been 30 days since Tiffany Stratton last wrestled as well. But I knew Io. I was very aware of Io's last match because she's only done backstage segments prior to this week, basically, where she was out in the ring. So it's a really strange scenario.
The difference, obviously, is that Tiffany's at least been featured in promos in the ring, whereas Io Sky's been sidelined completely and glazing Nikki Bella for some reason, despite the fact
that why I felt she was carrying an injury.
Because Io Sky was
taken her off TV, but they've taken her totally out of any
away from
firing line. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
So this will also be the time to mention Liv's injury, Ross. Horrible one. If it's bad, you're talking up to, I think the official line's up to 16 weeks out with a skated shoulder. Depending on how bad that is now. This is a real issue for the women's division on Raw and the division, the show in the whole, because they were clearly building towards the Judgment Day split.
Yeah.
That they'll rejig it, they'll figure it out, they maybe just bring it forward, but it was coming. I would assume when Liv does return, she returns a face because she's starting to turn that way. People want to see her back in the title picture. But the other thing is, she was probably the most believable challenger to Io Sky if you're keeping Rhea Ripley away for a little bit, just to keep separation. Are we going to see an early push for somebody like Stephanie Vaquer or Roxanne? Or do you think we still try and hold that back a little bit?
It's a really interesting one. So yeah, the injury is really bad timing. Like, it's 4 months, I think, without surgery. You know, if she's unfortunate enough and requires surgery, I think you're looking at 6, which is just, Evolution is back. Either Evolution or SummerSlam's in her hometown, and she misses both. I mean, that's horrific timing.
SummerSlam, I think she's New Jersey.
Yes, I mean, that's
SummerSlam would be home.
As bad timings go, there's never a good time to get injured. That's certainly a bad one. You're right in that.
I think she'll make SummerSlam.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think she'd need to be really unlucky like Finn Balor with his dislocation, that she tears a labrum or something, that it's going to put her on the shelf for up to 46 months.
It's such an innocuous injury, wasn't it?
Like, it was nothing.
It's not a normal move, and you can see it. You can see it pops.
Yeah.
You see that dislocation, you can recover in a couple of weeks. An elite athlete can recover in a couple of weeks, but it then takes another couple of weeks to be able to build the strength back up to pick people up, or be ring ready. So I don't think they'll risk her for Evolution, because you're risking putting her on the shelf and potentially somebody else. Yeah. I do think she'll make SummerSlam. It's 2 months away. Unless it is worse than first suspected, I do think she'll make SummerSlam.
It does give a bit of a void, which will be interesting to see if anyone fills it. And you're right that you can kind of rate the return is going to be. You could imagine a scenario where Roxanne just sort of slips into that space for a bit, and then Liv comes back, turns on her, boom, there's the fallout.
Aye.
Job done.
I'm glad you said that. Because I think if her injury's going to keep her out, it's certainly past Evolution. I think they're going to rejig their original plans for Queen of the Ring, and it will be one of Roxanne or Asuka. I think they'll just rejig the plan slightly. For who they probably planned to win it originally.
Mm-hmm.
It really surprised me, but it's obviously looking forward to seeing her back, because she's one of the ones that every year you look back where she was 3-4 years ago, and you're like almost like, how did she get to that level so quickly? Because
she's very good.
Not she's just turned it to be absolutely phenomenal, and she was on that path back to the world title, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a shame. We'll segue into just an overall chat about the women's fatal four-way. I would say it was a good match, good run time, but I thought the finish was a bit clunky. It didn't feel very clean. I thought Ross, I just thought it needed to be slightly tidier.
I think in general, it didn't even help that if you go back and watch it back, obviously the crowd react. The commentator reacts. The camera doesn't. The camera doesn't actually pan round for like a good 6 seconds to go, oh, well, we already know who you're about to pan round to. You're supposed to do something. Yeah. I mean, as much as anyone, I do love some chaos, but it was just a little iffy. I think they could have done better. I think they could have, you can look at it and go, well, the win's the win and no one gets buried and everyone looks fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of been the entire reason why these fatal four-ways exist anyway, is to try and protect someone, if you kind of look back at certainly how they've went. But I think, it's the nature of them, isn't it? They're basically ran out of finishes.
Aye.
Just don't know what else to do with them.
Having just said that there's a pivot to Asuka possibly for Queen of the Ring, is that the right person coming out of that match before injury, or is it at the time we just went with somebody else?
I still think it's the right time, because if you look at the bracket, you've already got Roxanne in it, right? So what you don't want is to put, it's probably the day two together, if you're looking at Steph potentially. Don't want these two built into a point where they either need to meet each other and one has to go over the other at this stage. You don't want that too early.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you probably want for day two is their first feud to come when one of them's holding the belt, so that if they don't win the title, I mean, you lose to the champion, so you know what I mean? I do think Asuka is the right person coming out that fatal four-way. I think it might pivot towards Asuka, because I think if you're looking at a 6 to 8 week program for EO at short notice, she's probably the perfect candidate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They've done a lot of in-ring work together before, so it's probably a quick win for them. The only issue I've got, you alluded to yourself, Saunders, is it's not your first language. So I don't know how you're going to build the story necessarily with these two, if it's going to be a longer term program. But I do think they might pivot towards Asuka. It's been a whole year, so she probably will be due it. She probably had a push booked in her contract before she got injured. So,
I mean, I was surprised to win it, but after watching it, I was like, you know what, it makes sense. They need to keep Steph, Roxanne, Julia, and Jordan Grace apart a little bit because they can't all win at the same time. So they need to find a way of being creative about it. So I don't have an issue with that. Stephanie still come at the match looking the best, I think, and will continue
definitely.
to every Monday look stronger than anybody else. In terms of quick catch, just to rattle through, I did talk about the JD McDonough AJ Styles match. I thought it was a decent match, but we now need to see Dom working with AJ with that title match set for Saudi. And I don't just mean in the ring, I mean the promos. It's Dom's been booked perfectly as this rise. Now he needs to be let loose a little bit and see if he can cope with somebody like AJ. It's a bit of a test for him. I think he'll rise to the test, but that's probably one to watch in the next few weeks and see how that looks. The other thing I've put in the quick kits, which is really unusual because we've loved their work and it's a huge match, is the Becky Bailey. The promo was a bit.
It was two people screaming at each other, was what that promo was.
It set the match up, but are we actually going to, I mean, the answer is yes or no here, but are we actually going to have this match in a random Raw episode?
No.
Yeah, I think the foreshadowing's been done. I actually think that it was all the complaining I made about Becky and her promo work with Lyra. It's just whiny. Bailey as well didn't come across overly great in the ring. The backstage segment with Lyra, I did call it. It's going to be a triple threat. It's the way it's going. Lyra's clearly not finished with this story. You've seen it in the backstage segment. So I don't know if you might get a wee surprise flip where she comes out and attacks Bailey for taking her title shot. I don't know. But there's no way.
The match is not finished next.
Do you know what I mean? It's not happening.
What do we think, Ross? Evolution Saudi. It's going to be Evolution, triple threat.
I think so. I think that just makes sense. It just the stars are kind of aligning for that. It's not.
It'll there. I mean, I'll call it just now. If that triple threat happens, Evolution. I think that's your three best workers, depending on what they do with like Stephanie and Julia. But I think that would be match of the night Evolution.
It could be. It very well could be.
It will be match of the night.
The story's there and the work, the in-ring work's there. They just need to put it together, and it would take a lot of effort to make an asset. I think that's what I'm trying to say. The ingredients are, but the fact is they have to now drag this out for a month. That's probably that's the biggest risk to this feud.
No, I know. It's
and I think that's even a three-way element. With a three-way element, though, I think you're able to. So had it just been Becky and Lyra, I'd have been bored of this by the time we got to Evolution, because we were talking about it was running a week too late. Then when she won the title, we thought this could go another couple of weeks. Then I thought, could I do this for another 6 weeks?
It wasn't even
and
that she won the title.
No. But BBL Bailey is now back, so she adds another dynamic to the conversation.
We will obviously just mention again that the reason that we were going on wasn't just the fact that Becky won the title. As we said last week in the show, it was arguably match of the night in Money in the Bank. The actual in-ring work of the game was phenomenal. So that's why we're saying the same thing for Evolution. We talked longer about that, so I'm going to just why is Heyman get the briefcase at ringside when Rollins isn't there? I know Rollins did eventually come out, but
it's bizarre.
It's just bizarre.
It's
right?
So weird.
I'm going to say it again. That stable does not need Paul Heyman. You have the best talker in the men's division, just about.
Yeah, I agreed.
You don't need Heyman. Roman needed Heyman at the start, and Heyman slowly faded away. But it doesn't need Heyman.
It's actually a very good angle that they can run, though, is to actually write him out of it.
I don't know what
that
was.
Like writes him out of the stable. Could be interesting.
He's only there to take Braun Breaker. That's the only reason he's there.
He's going to be
there for a inevitable Braun Breaker split up. That's the only reason he's there. But I agree. Seeing the Money in the Bank briefcase at ringside when Cessna there's bonkers. It's see if you turned it on and you thought, oh look, we might get a cash in, and then you realise Seth's not even fucking down the ramp. You'd be like, what else is going on here? I've been for that. I've been for that booking run. Paul crashes in the beat. I'm in for that.
Question 2. yes or no? Ross first, then Daz. Are they actually building to doing something with Karrion Kross on TV here?
I don't even know if
Or
I
is
can
it
answer.
just to glaze Sammy? It's just glazes, or just to set Sammy up?
I can only assume no because I've yet to see anything that proves otherwise. I just want to see him on TV though. Like, just do it properly.
Short. I'm going to give a really short answer. No.
Nah. It's for whatever Sammy's story is, isn't it? That's the reason he's
to
there.
tell us that Sammy's not going to win King of the Ring. That's pretty much what it's telling us.
The final bit on sort of quick hits. There's two topics left to get through. We're going to save G versus G to last because we're going to rant about one of them. Jey Uso wins the Fatal 4-Way, so I'm personally glad they're keeping them strong because it could have went the Kofi Kingston route where they just immediately shove him back to that division. Where I think he needs to go because the Raw Tag Division needs help, but they're keeping them looking strong even though the inevitable fail's coming. He's no winning King of the Ring, and he's still over the crowd, so I love that for him. But he could have been taken out in the multi-man match, protected them, slowly moved them out it. So the two questions I've got here is, Daz first. Are we already done with Rusev? And question two is, do we really need to see Cody standing there at the end of the show again, after already mentioned it in SmackDown? And do you think there's anything there with him being a member of Haven's stable as a change? Just 2.5 questions, I suppose.
Right. We'll break down question one in a very short answer. Yes, Rusev is finished. I said it when he come back. I did not see the vision for this guy when they re-signed him. They Scott Allen'd him, for those who don't understand niche football references in Scotland. They basically signed him so that somebody else couldn't. Yeah, I'll just get Rusev in the brain now. In terms of the match, I think you're right. Jay didn't need to win it. See, for me, Sheamus is the blueprint to put over in that match. Put him in the next round. Do you know what I mean? Because you know who is Jay and fucking QB9 or whatever his name is. So we know that Sheamus won't win that match, but we also know that Jay's not going to win it. It's pointless.
It's like the worst from losing the singles match.
It would have been a perfect time for Jay not to win the Fatal 4-Way, not eat the pin, so not be involved in the decision. And the Sheamus Rusev angle was there. Just let Sheamus pin Rusev. No one gives a fuck about Rusev. So
Sheamus pins Rusev the next round, and that sets up the singles match that's been teased for however many weeks now. It's right there. It's right there. And Sheamus is one of the ones that you know what you're getting him, but also a brogue kick out of nowhere will give you a really good false finish and stuff. It would have been a more interesting story. We don't need face versus face unless the turn comes, but it's not coming in a semi-final match on SmackDown.
Yeah.
And the answer to your final question, there's no legs in Cody in that stable.
Nah.
The two personalities are too big to coexist in a stable like that. I really, really hope. Part of me hopes that Jay beats Cody, right? Because I cannot be arsed with Cody Rhodes, and because if he goes to the final, he wins it. So I'd prefer it to be Jay that goes to the final. But if Jay goes to the final, then all my eggs go in the Randy Orton basket. So yeah, Jay does need to go back to the tag division. I like that they didn't just dump him in, like you said. But yeah, the time's up. Go and partner up with Big Jim and actually make the Raw division watchable.
I would. I'm going to come back to you then, Ross, with 2.5 questions, but this change the half of the second one. I seen you nodding on in agreement. Is Rusev just done? Is this burnt out already? Question two is just your thoughts on once again seeing Cody stand tall with the same run in and finish, and I guess off the back of that, what to make it of the chaos of so much interference again, because we know you love your chaos.
I love chaos, but I don't love watching the same thing, because I finished SmackDown this morning and then watched Raw, so I watched the same thing twice, in a few hours, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why are people at home doing this? Just give us something different. You have the chance to have as much as 8 hours of wrestling a week. Have a bit of variety, please. Yeah, the chaos was great, but I actually wrote down here I lost count of the run-ins because it's damn near impossible. But this again comes back to they're having to constantly do these run-ins rather than start pulling the trigger and letting the threads go of the stories because they can't. So they just keep on going, oh, well, 1 week you're going to screw him, and then next week you're going to screw him, but you're not actually going to fight each other until August or something. So just keep on doing that. No, please. We're better than this.
Is there, last question on this, is there any chance that we're going to get Cody versus Seth again at some point this year? Because I'm seeing rumours that if Cody beats Cena, Seth might cash in on him. But surely that was done too much in the last few years.
They had the tease, didn't they? Was it Cody Punk backstage? He was like, we'll see soon who's chasing who. They've got options there, at least, which is nice. I have absolutely no idea, though, which one they're going to pull trigger on because they just keep on postponing everything.
Surely we're still saying the same thing, that at some point this World Heavyweight title needs to go back to somebody who is, like, I'm not saying Gunther isn't, but you know what I mean. The top 5 player needs to hold that title again for a little while. And we thought it was Rollins, but they now seem to be teasing him possibly going for the WWE title. Surely that's just going to separate the two titles further.
I think it's a swerve. I think he cashes in at Night of Champions. I think that I'm not sure if Gunther's going to drop the belt necessarily. I'll get this really horrible feeling they're going to try and reenact a heist of the century, but with 2 big, massive slabs of meat involved. So we did say it. If he won the briefcase, it had to be a quick cash in. Taking it off Cena doesn't make sense unless he pinned the other guy and makes it triple threat.
Here's the thing. We know that for the next 4 weeks, it's going nowhere near Gunther because Gunther Goldberg's booked.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we said a quicker cash in would have made at least a little bit of sense, unless, of course, the plan is a swerve somewhere. But aye, so we'll move on. We keep touching on it. Goldberg, Gunther. Ross, I'm going to come to you first because you hate Bill Goldberg. But Gunther's never had a bad match. And in theory, Goldberg can still tell a 5-minute story. But the last time I remember seeing Goldberg in the ring, I thought he killed The Undertaker because he couldn't lift him.
And that was 6 years ago.
Surely at some point you just have to accept that you had your chance to retire and you fucking blew it. Don't come back and ruin it again.
I cannot understand the logic of bringing a guy back for a retirement match who looked broken by the time he had walked to the ring.
He sounded broken as well.
He could not walk properly, and before he starts his promo, he is already visibly sweating. Yes, Gunther can work that slow style where you can maybe stretch this to 10 minutes. And you could have the whole thing maybe next week where you start building it up and then Gunther just goes, nah, and just slaps him away. But why? Why do we have all this? We have all these superstars. We have all these potential avenues. Why have we decided to just do this? I know it's a throwaway and I know it doesn't matter, but it kind of does. You've got loads of people in the backstage that are just sitting and catering, doing nothing. Give one of them a program with Gunther, even if it was going to be a short one. Just, yeah. This is the thing that WWE's done.
Straight to you. I see you shaking your head there.
I think that I mean I hate Goldberg. You're right. He almost killed the Undertaker. Gunther is bigger. He's heavier. There is no way he is going to jackhammer Gunther.
I absolutely.
Honestly, the insurance will not cover it. It's impossible that the insurance will cover it. The guy struggled to climb the middle rope. The guy's broken. The issue I've got with this feud is, I mean, it'll make okay TV because Gunther's character and Goldberg's character are a direct clash. it's going to get personal. We've already spoke about the family before, and I don't mind the TV. I'm not against the TV segments. I'm just, how do you make Gunther look good in this? Because the guy is almost 60, so in theory you should fucking murder him. But they're going to Bill Goldberg's going to spear him as soon as the bell rings, and
Aye.
They're going
I'm
to
not here
give
for it.
him like 90
I'm
seconds
just,
of offense that is going to make us all absolutely furious.
I don't think he can give 90 seconds offense. I'm sorry.
Well, I
See, I
That-
think the spear will be the end of it.
that's what I'm confused about, and there must be more to the story than it's these two in a retirement. There just has to be, because the booking of it makes, especially for Saturday night main event.
It's
See, if they
bizarre.
were doing it in Saudi, I get it. It's a big
Aye,
paycheck.
I was going to say that. Aye,
Mm.
because at least you can justify it by saying the Saudis are $5 million. You're like, all right, fine, have them.
But you're booking it. It doesn't make sense.
I'm in doubt. It ties up your entire Raw main event for a month for a 59 at the end of the year, a 58-year-old man
This
who
is what I
couldn't
don't
go 6
get,
years ago.
And Saturday we're going to crown King of the Ring, right? So if that's apologies, a week on Saturday. So if that's a Raw guy that wins, you then need to wait for this fucking Goldberg program to end before you get your build for SummerSlam. And it doesn't make sense to me. I can't get my head around.
Point, actually. Imagine having to get there. You have to get
there.
You have to get there. You have to get there on Raw on the Monday and at least pretend there's a chance it's Goldberg at SummerSlam.
Exactly.
Which is just nonsense. So again, you as well, whoever wins King of the Ring, you'd be as well putting them off telly for 2 weeks until that match is done.
I mean, who are the two Raw guys? Jey Uso, who's unconvincing against either. Let's be honest. Who's your other Raw guy that's left?
Sami.
Exactly. Could you imagine Sami Zayn versus Goldberg?
No, I don't want to. I'd like off this
world,
right, please.
So that's actually the perfect question you've just asked, right? Because we're going to this bit of the pod, right? We'll talk about this every week. So we've got 2 semi-finals for the men's and 2 for the women. So Friday night semi-final is Sami versus Randy, followed next Monday by Cody versus Jey. Let's have a prediction. Who takes the King of the Ring? Daz. It's 4 faces, really, right now, which is really interesting.
It is. The story should be Cody Orton. That's what the story should be. That's what the story will be, because it's in Saudi Arabia, and it's going to be.
You don't want to be much.
And this is the problem I've got, right? None of the 4 suit the gimmick. None of them suit the gimmick. I can't see any 4 of them walking about with the crown and the cape and the fucking nonsense. It just doesn't work.
Unless they don't do the gimmick. They might not do the gimmick. They might just have it as the way it should be. But
they'll get that stupid crown that they're going to be.
I know.
They're going to be crowned on it. But I think it'll be Cody.
I could actually.
I don't want it to be Cody, but I think
see, I can see Cody bombing about in that cape. I can actually kind of see it in my mind's eye, and I think you're right. I mean,
he's a loser.
I think if this was like King of the Ring and it was in, I don't know, Brooklyn, you could at least maybe think, oh, there could be a little bit of something different. No, it's the big names, and it is going to be Cody, and we're all going to be sitting scratching our heads, going, "How did we get here again?"
I'm going to turn around and say that I don't think it will be, but I think it'll be Bronson Reed, a broad breaker, it cost him in Saudi. I think it's whoever comes out. I think it's whoever comes out the other match. I think it gives you the option of doing Orton versus Cena one last time. It gives you Sami to the main event picture. I just think it's too big a mistake to make it Cody, and that's why I don't think it'll be him. But that might be more in hope than anything else.
Do you think a Raw guy can win it, realistically, given the programme that Gunther wins for the next month?
Only because we've seen the Sami Gunther history. I can see it. I can't see Jey winning it. Jey's not. I could see Sami because they've got the history. But again, that goes back to the point we talked about a few minutes ago and last week and the week before. That world title is just becoming the IC title plus. That's the risk. but we'll obviously revisit it next week when the matches. Women's side, Ross, you first this time. Friday night we've got Roxanne versus Jade. Next Monday we've got Alexa versus Asuka.
Oh, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be interesting. I think it will probably be Asuka on one side, and I actually can't really decide. I think pre-injury, I think it's really hard to call, but I kind of have to stick to my guns here and that they will at least maybe put Roxanne in the final, just to kind of almost become Liv. But yeah, I think then Asuka does make sense. I think Daz's points earlier on were spot on. I think it's a really good time to pull the trigger on her. Just do it.
Daz, you've already said it. You've got two of them in the final.
I do. The only issue I've got is Roxanne can't go over super clean against Jade. It doesn't make sense. Another lucky roll up or something, I'm fine with. I'm absolutely fine with it. Scrapping her way to a final. I think
No one may get involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, possibly.
Aye.
Yeah, and I think that this is where I think they're going to swerve. I think the original plan was going to be Alexa Bliss. I think she was the original. I think she was going to be planned to win it because the briefcase is on SmackDown, but like you say, Tiffy's no wrestling. So I think Alexa was probably the original plan. I think they'll swerve it and it'll be Asuka. I would like to see an Asuka Roxanne final. I would, and to be fair, either one of them to win it wouldn't really bother me. I just think it's maybe a touch too early for Roxanne to be in the title picture. But I suppose if there's a spot that needs filled and you want to take a punt, yeah, well,
I don't think we can get Jade versus Asuka. I don't think that works in the ring at all. I think Roxanne. I'm with you. I think Roxanne would have been costed by Liv. Well, that was semi-final. Cost. Liv would have cost Roxanne in the semis of the final. Screwed her at it. I think that's obvious to me at that point. That's obviously now gone. Maybe Raquel, or maybe they just do away with it completely. I'm with you. After SmackDown and Friday night, I had Alexa, but I think there'll be a swerve somewhere. Maybe Charlotte gets involved or something, but there'll be a swerve. I think it's an Asuka Roxanne final, and I think it's probably Asuka. Again, it gives you a safe SummerSlam match with Asuka and Io. Final segment, NXT. Ross, you mentioned it earlier at the start, but anything you want to pick out from NXT last week that's worth can maybe save this week of wrestling?
Yeah, if you are looking for good wrestling, look no further. NXT actually thought it was a pretty good show. You could be realistically talk about 2/3 of it, but I'm not going to sit here and speak for another hour. But they got the show right. You know, it starts off, Oba's like walking into the arena and then is immediately chucked through a car to then take you into the main event with him against Jasper Troy, where he's at like 70% fit. This is a fantastic match. Everyone loves a moment where the ring breaks. You get a ring break moment. There is also a big question mark of the finish, where Oba looks like Oba's pinned him, but you can't see from the camera angle. But I assume Jasper Troy moved ever so slightly and his shoulder came up when he shouldn't, because you can then see Oba's face of the look of, for fuck's sake, and then does another finisher on him and then pins him. But overall, that whole thing, absolutely excellent. And then one other thing probably worth picking out is actually the first match on the card, which was Paige Legacy for the NA title. Legacy's coming in and looking pretty good. I must admit, I'm quite pleasantly surprised with what I've seen. The crowd bought into it, and there was even some fantastic spots, like Paige wins, but there's like even like moments where there's like a backbreaker on the turnbuckles, just like chef's kiss, and then there was some chaos with Saints running. I mean, what more do you need?
We have praised Ethan Page a lot since we've been doing this, because he's just looking better and better each week. Is this? I know you're going to jump in there, but answer this as well if you don't mind. We've really liked the Raw and SmackDown shows in the last few weeks where some of the NXT stars have appeared sporadically, because you get used to them and you see them at the higher level. have these fatal 4-ways because they've had to be squeezed in. Is that part of the reason these shows have suffered this week? Because you had no space for these guys to just give you something different, which is what we've asked for all night. Just something different.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. I think
definitely. And I think the fatal 4-way on Raw, especially, see if it wasn't Jey, say they kept Jey off TV for a couple of weeks, give him a bit of respite. You could have stuck Javon in. And this is what I was going to interject and talk about, and I do want to talk about it. But there was a couple of guys you could have put in that. You could have put Ethan Page in.
Yeah, you
could
could
put in Ricky. You know what I mean? There's a lot of talent in developmental right now, and we spoke about who's the next person to carry the division because Oba is due his flowers for NXT and he's due to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
They have unearthed an absolute gem through LFG and Jasper Troy. This guy
he was very good.
Incredible.
Why?
He's incredible. I've not watched a lot of LFG. I've seen a lot of online clips, and it was mostly to do with Bubba and that whatever that guy was. But I seen a few of Jasper Troy, and it looked good in LFG. I don't watch NXT every week. I make a point of looking at his matches because I'm really interested by him. And see, when I watch him in Oba, I can already see the program with somebody like Gunther, or see even like a mid-card title with a guy like Sheamus or Drew McIntyre. It would feed families. I'm not even kidding.
I want to see Jasper Troy. That's what I want to see. I just look at it and I'm like, I just see the two of them. I'm just bringing up the notes and stuff. I know the look's not massively different, but I'm just looking at him going, I just want to see him and somebody else who just hits hard, just beat the shit out of each other for 20 minutes. Like, it doesn't need to be choreographed, it doesn't need to look pretty. It just needs to be like, to quote Biggie, big meaty men slam me. That's what you want to see. It's just two big slabs of meat.
See if you look at the other three guys in Jay's fatal 4-way. Big Bronson,
I know.
Rusev, Sheamus. Stick a guy like that and let us just revel in it. I'm not kidding. Fuck Dave Meltzer, but it would have been up there in terms of, for me, it would have been up there as a 5-star match. I'm not even kidding.
It's
four big slabs and nothing. You know what I mean?
Ross, we have praised all the NXT talent stepping up, as I've said, but in a match like that, you allow somebody to come in, do their spots, show their finish, get their finish established in front of the main roster crowd, and then, like, Jasper Troy, Oba Femi, have them out the ring with Bronson Reed and just the two of them crash through something that takes them out, it keeps them safe, protects them, and the finish happens elsewhere.
Absolutely.
I hope we get back to that once these multi-man matches are out of the way, because it's been a high spot, hasn't it, on these shows in the last few weeks? It's just these NXT stars getting a chance to show themselves.
Especially
Javon showed out.
Oh, Javon was so good as well. Like, he'll go places, I think, as well. But just having a little bit of fresh talent on there just for 5 minutes, especially when it's guys that are already ready, they're just waiting for the right time. It's just a perfect use of talent. It really is.
Yep.
Aye.
Totally.
Final segment is, as always, the titular Golden Shovel Award.
Which
every week we just nominate one of the stories, one of the bookings that we just go, you know what, this makes very little sense to us. I'm going to throw out a nominee and you can either retort or agree. I'm not necessarily throwing out Goldberg versus Gunther as the Golden Shovel, but I'm throwing out the fact that once again we know that for the next month that world title is now tied up. I just think it's you've got Saudi, you've got the Money in the Bank on that show, but we now know that for the next 4 weeks that title just sits there. And I know that 4 weeks isn't a long time in wrestling, but it is when you've got other PLEs and you've got the Money in the Bank briefcase. So for me, it's just once again pushing that title at the road, because we're not even talking about the world title for that match. We're just talking about the fact that it's Gunther and Goldberg. Mm-hmm. So for me, just this idea of you've now tied that up for 4 weeks. I don't agree with it. I don't understand it. And I don't know if you guys are going to throw. I think the issue I looked at my notes and I'm like, it was all so shit that it's really hard to pick out one thing, to be honest, and say that was the worst booking decision.
I do have a counter. I don't disagree with what you said.
Aye.
the fact that if it wins the Golden Shovel this week, I'm totally fine with it. my golden shovel this week is something on the home brand of SmackDown. I feel like the Wyatt Six are dead in the water. That tag match has set them back hugely. I didn't even touch on it when we spoke about SmackDown because it was that bad. And
understandably,
the reason I didn't want to touch on it during SmackDown is because it reflects really badly on motorcycle machine guns, and there's only so much they can do to help carry them through. And I know there's an element of ring rust. I get it, but you can't tell me these guys haven't been. I know it's similar to like a match fitness type scenario, but you can't tell me these guys haven't been working in the background while they've been waiting on this. And
we did talk about the other week with the Ron Killings release that he's a house show guy, but they've basically done, unless they're on tour, there's no house shows. That's where the White Six should have been, off telly, but performing 100%. To keep themselves fresh. So is the golden shovel the lack of house? I mean, is that the type of...
It's a hard one to pick out. Were they the two guys that have picked for the wise? How do you know if it's your first televised match back, Team Howdy up with Gacy or something like that, and you need it had to work, and unfortunately it didn't work. Don't get me wrong, I think they picked the wrong team for them as well. It really should have been Fraxium because they would have carried it. We know why it's not Fraxium because they were on AAA. Like, I get it, but that gets my golden shovel this week. I think it's going to really be difficult to pull them out. How bad that was.
I don't disagree with what you said either. I know, I think for me, I've not been high on this Wyatt thing since the first time they appeared and then disappeared. Just because at that point I thought it was dead. So that's probably why I don't hear it. Ross, do you like kicking something, or do you want to pick between the two of them that we've thrown there? I know you hate Goldberg, but you need to be objective.
Yes, I'm going to be objective, and I actually think I'm going to have first for the Golden Shovel podcast, and we're going to have Golden Shovel winners because you are both absolutely spot on. Because if I was being...
You are the main event next week, do you know that?
Yes.
I basically now have...
Total, that tag match, total disaster. One of them looked okay. I've already forgotten their names, which is not a bad sign. The other one looked like he was like a deer in headlights. Nonsense. And then, Goldberg, please stop beating up old men. Just stop it. So yes, both win.
I would counter by saying that the Wyatts isn't necessarily booking; it just doesn't work. But the fact that you hate Bill Goldberg and you're calling it a draw means that I probably have to concede to Daz. Because if we took out your hatred for Goldberg, it probably swings it the other way just a wee bit.
Level-headed for the viewing public at home. If this was not being recorded, well, I'd be cancelled. So there's that.
Well, you can't get cancelled for calling someone a bald fraud.
It was just, honestly, is the Golden Shovel just the fact both shows were shit? Is it as simple as
honest,
that?
I think we should come in agreement here, right? And I think we should give the Golden Shovel just the TKO as a whole this week. Just everything about the two the big brother and big sister, the two of them were just really, really poor shows.
Kids out in the back garden having fun. They are having a lovely time out there.
Aye.
Parents are arguing.
And the ones that are training, the ones you're developing are fucking shining. It's like it'd been back in the black and gold days where NXT was consistently better.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
It's as if they've listened to this podcast and went, "What if we gave them everything they've complained about in one day?"
I mean, if we get none of it for 3 months, I can deal with that.
Oh, I don't say that because next week's going to be worse. They'll probably roll it Sting. Somebody else's 60-year-old. Right. So this week, the Golden Shovel goes to whoever booked the monstrosities that were SmackDown and Raw.
Oh, I've got some bad news because have you heard who's part of the new creative team?
Yes, I've heard that Taker's possibly involved. He's been loving it.
So maybe it's Taker's fault. Maybe it's him.
Maybe, yeah. Oh dear.
Somebody should be getting fired for that. Anyway,
if I can.
Here's hoping we're done with multi-man matches for a few weeks at least.
Amen.
So that is another. That's episode 10. Week 10, episode 10 of the Golden Shovel podcast. Once again, recapping whatever the fuck that was in terms of storytelling. We tried our best. We apologise for whatever it was. But we'll sign the podcast off there if it does. Roscoe.
We apologise. We hope next week's better.
And myself, take it easy and we'll catch you next.